A CBS producer told young Clint Eastwood he was too quiet and too serious for television. "Smile more, or you're fired," he said. "TV cowboys need personality." Clint refused to change. What happened 3 months later made that producer eat his words in front of the entire network. The year was 1958. Clint Eastwood was 28 years old and basically unknown. He'd been fired from Universal Studios 3 years earlier. Since then, he'd been scraping by with bit parts in B-movies. He was considering quitting. Then his agent called with an audition. CBS was developing a new Western series called Rawhide. They needed someone to play Rowdy Yates, the ramrod. Second lead, regular role, steady paycheck. After 3 auditions, they offered him the role. A regular television series, financial security, a chance to prove himself. He signed immediately. Production started in summer 1958. The show's concept was straightforward. A cattle drive moving 3,000 head from San Antonio to Sedalia. Every episode, the drovers faced a new challenge. Stampedes, bandits, weather. Towns that didn't want cattle passing through. Eric Fleming played Gil Favor, the trail boss. Experienced, authoritative. The lead. Clint played Rowdy Yates, the ramrod. Younger. Still learning. The character who'd grow over the series. The first week of filming went smoothly. Clint approached Rowdy as a serious young man, learning to be a leader. Quiet, observant. Someone who spoke when necessary, but didn't waste words. In Clint's mind, that's who Rowdy was. A cowboy, not a comedian. Then came the production meeting with Charles Marquis Warren, the show's producer. Warren had created Gunsmoke. He knew television westerns, and he had concerns about Clint's performance. "You're too quiet," Warren said. "Too serious. This is television, not a funeral. We need energy, personality, charm." Clint listened, his face revealing nothing. "Television cowboys need to be likable," Warren continued. "Look at James Arness on Gunsmoke, Ward Bond on Wagon Train. You're just stern. Viewers won't connect with stern." "Rowdy is learning," Clint said. "He's young, unsure. That's why he's quiet." Warren shook his head. "That's too subtle for television. TV viewers want clear emotions. Your approach is too understated. It doesn't read on camera." "The character works," Clint said. "The character is boring," Warren said bluntly. "You need to open up, smile more, be more expressive. Right now, you're a blank slate." Clint's jaw tightened slightly. The only visible sign Warren's words were landing. "I'm playing the character the way I see him." "Then you're seeing him wrong," Warren said, his patience thinning. "This isn't art cinema. This isn't a Sergio Leone Western where silence equals depth. This is CBS primetime television. We need accessible characters, characters that housewives and kids can relate to. Your brooding cowboy doesn't work for that audience." "How do you know?" Clint asked. "The show hasn't aired yet." Warren leaned forward, his tone threatening. "I've been doing this for 20 years. I know television audiences. Your performance needs to change. More energy, more smiles, more personality. Or this isn't going to work." "Are you asking me to change the character?" Clint said. "I'm telling you to make the character watchable," Warren replied. "You're Eric Fleming's sidekick. You should be bringing energy. Instead, you're doubling down on quiet. It's a mistake." Clint sat in silence. This was his first regular television role. His chance to prove Universal wrong, and the producer was telling him he was doing it wrong. "What specifically do you want me to do?" Clint asked. Warren seemed relieved. "Smile more. Banter with the other drovers. Show enthusiasm. React visibly. Let the audience see your emotions clearly." Clint nodded slowly. "And if I don't?" Warren's expression hardened. "Then we have a problem. If you can't adjust, we'll need to find someone who can." The threat was clear. Change or get replaced. Clint had heard versions of this before, at Universal, at auditions, people telling him he needed to be different, more expressive, more conventional, more like everyone else. "You're giving me 3 months," Clint said. Not a question, a statement. 3 months, Warren confirmed. "That's how long until we see the ratings from the first episodes. If audiences aren't responding to Rowdy, if the numbers show he's a problem, we make a change. This is business, nothing personal. Clint stood up. Understood. He left Warren's office with a decision already made. He wasn't changing. Not his performance, not his approach, not who Rowdy Yates was. Because Warren was asking him to become something generic, something safe, and Clint had watched enough television to know that safe was forgettable. The next day on set, the other actors noticed something different about Clint. Not in his performance. That remained exactly the same. Quiet, controlled, minimal. But in his demeanor, there was a determination now, a focus, like someone who'd decided to prove something. Eric Fleming, the show's lead, pulled Clint aside during a break. "Warren talked to you, didn't he?" Clint nodded. "He wants you to smile more, be more energetic, all that?" Fleming asked. "Yeah." "You going to do it?" Fleming asked. Clint looked at him directly. "No." Fleming smiled slightly. "Good. Your way works. Don't let them make you into every other TV cowboy." But not everyone on set supported Clint's decision. Directors tried to get him to be more expressive. "Give me a bigger reaction, show excitement." Clint delivered the line the same way. The director sighed but moved on. Warren heard about it, called Clint in again. "I'm hearing you're not making the changes we discussed." "The changes would make the character worse," Clint said. "That's not your call to make," Warren said sharply. "You're an actor. I'm the producer. I know what works." "You know what's worked before," Clint said. "This might work differently." Warren's face reddened. "This is your last warning. I've got a dozen actors who'd kill for your role. You're replaceable. Change your performance, or I'll find someone who will." Clint left that meeting knowing the clock was ticking. 3 months. 13 episodes would air in that time. If the ratings were bad, if audience feedback was negative, Warren would fire him. And this time, Clint wouldn't just be fired. He'd be known as the actor who was too difficult to work with, too stubborn to listen. That reputation would follow him, make future jobs impossible. But he still didn't change. Episode after episode, Clint played Rowdy Yates the same way. Quiet, serious, minimal expressions. While Eric Fleming's Gilfavor was authoritative and verbal, Rowdy was observant and restrained. The contrast was there, just not the contrast Warren wanted. The crew started placing bets. Would Clint get fired? Would he finally break and start smiling more? Production assistants whispered about it. Warren made his frustration known. "That kid is committing career suicide," he told other producers. "He's too proud to see it." Then Rawhide premiered. January 9th, 1959. CBS, Friday night. 8 p.m. The first episode introduced the cattle drive, established the characters, set the tone. CBS executives watched nervously. They'd invested heavily in this show. It needed to work. The overnight ratings came in. Good. Not spectacular, but solid. Enough to justify continuing. But the real test was audience retention. Would people come back for episode 2, 3, or would they drift away? Episode 2 aired. Ratings held. Episode 3, slight increase. By episode 4, something unexpected was happening. Rawhide wasn't just holding its audience, it was growing. CBS's research department started conducting viewer surveys, standard practice for new shows. They'd call random viewers who'd watched, ask what they liked, what they didn't, who their favorite characters were. The results surprised everyone. Gilfavor was popular as expected. Eric Fleming's strong, steady trail boss resonated with audiences. But the second most popular character wasn't one of the veteran drovers. It was Rowdy Yates, the quiet, serious ramrod who barely smiled. Women viewers particularly responded to him. They found him mysterious, intriguing, different from the typical TV cowboys who were always joking and grinning. Rowdy felt real, authentic, like someone who'd actually lived a hard life, not someone performing cowboy. Male viewers liked him too. They saw him as competent, tough, someone who didn't need to talk constantly to prove his worth. In a television landscape full of chatty, performative cowboys, Rowdy's silence stood out. By episode 8, Rawhide was a certified hit. Top 20 show. CBS's biggest new success of the season. Fan mail poured in. Much of it for Clint. Letters from viewers saying they loved how different Rowdy was. How he reminded them of real cowboys they'd known, not Hollywood versions. Charles Marquis Warren watched the numbers with growing disbelief. The performance he'd called too quiet, too serious, too boring was working, not despite its restraint, but because of it. Audiences were connecting with exactly what Warren had wanted Clint to change. 3 months after that first meeting, Warren called Clint into his office again. The same office where he'd threatened to fire him. The same desk where he'd said Clint was replaceable. Clint walked in prepared for anything. Maybe Warren would take credit for the success. Maybe he'd claim he'd known all along Clint's approach would work. Maybe he'd just not mention their previous conversations. Warren did none of those things. He stood up when Clint entered, extended his hand. "I was wrong," Warren said simply. "Completely wrong. Your instincts about Rowdy were right. Mine were wrong. I'm sorry for threatening you, and I'm grateful you didn't listen to me." Clint shook his hand, surprised by the directness. "You couldn't have known how audiences would respond." "I should have trusted your judgment," Warren said. "You understood something about the character that I didn't see. You saw that television was ready for a different kind of cowboy. I was stuck thinking about what had worked before. You were thinking about what could work now." "So I'm not fired?" Clint asked with the slightest hint of a smile. Warren laughed. "Fired? You're the second lead on a hit show. CBS wants to feature you more. They're talking about giving Rowdy his own episode storylines, building the show more around you and Eric together." That conversation marked a shift. Warren became one of Clint's biggest supporters. He defended Clint's minimalist approach to CBS executives who still thought he should be more expressive. He gave Clint more creative input on his character. He trusted Clint's instincts. Rawhide ran for 7.5 years, 217 episodes. It made Clint a television star. More importantly, it proved something crucial, that his instincts about characters were sound. That the quiet, understated approach that everyone kept telling him to abandon was actually his strength. CBS tried several times to make Clint more conventional. They suggested he do variety show appearances where he'd joke around. He declined. They wanted him to do promotional interviews where he'd be bubbly and enthusiastic. He did the interviews but stayed himself. Calm, measured, serious, and audiences loved it. The more CBS tried to make him into a typical TV star, the more his refusal to play that game made him distinctive. Rowdy Yates became iconic not despite Clint's stubbornness, but because of it. Eric Fleming, the show's original lead, saw what was happening. Clint's fan mail was surpassing his own. Magazine covers wanted Clint, not Eric. The quiet second lead was becoming the breakout star. Some actors would have resented it. Fleming just shrugged. "You earned it," he told Clint. "You stuck to your guns when everyone told you not to. That takes guts." During the show's run, Clint received film offers. Most were generic, smiling cowboys, charming heroes. Clint turned them down. Then came Sergio Leone and the spaghetti westerns, films that required exactly what Clint had brought to Rowdy: silence, intensity, minimal expression. Leone cast Clint specifically because of Rawhide. "I watched the show," Leone said later. "Everyone else was acting, Eastwood was being. That's what I needed." If Clint had listened to Warren, Leone would never have cast him. The man with no name would have gone to someone else. Clint's film career stemmed from his refusal to change on Rawhide. Years later, in 1966, after Clint had become an international star from the Leone westerns, CBS threw a celebration for Rawhide's 200th episode. Charles Marquis Warren gave a speech. He told the story of threatening to fire Clint for being too quiet. The room laughed. "I learned something important from Clint," Warren said. "I learned that sometimes the actor knows the character better than the producer. I learned that different isn't wrong, and I learned that when someone has a strong instinct about their performance, maybe you should listen instead of threaten." Clint was asked to say a few words. He stood up, looked at Warren and said, "Charlie told me to smile more. I'm still working on it." The room erupted in laughter because Clint still barely smiled, and it had made him one of the biggest stars in the world. Rawhide ended in 1965. By then, Clint was already transitioning to film full-time, but he never forgot the show, Never forgot that it gave him his first real chance. Never forgot that Charles Marquis Warren, despite initially getting it wrong, had the integrity to admit his mistake and support Clint completely once he understood. In interviews decades later, Clint was asked about Rawhide, about Warren's threat to fire him, about refusing to smile more. His answer was characteristically brief. "I knew who Rowdy was. Warren thought he knew who Rowdy should be. The audience decided who was right." But the fuller truth was more complex. Clint's refusal to change on Rawhide wasn't just about one character on one show. It was about establishing a principle he'd follow his entire career. Trust your instincts, even when powerful people tell you you're wrong. Stay true to your vision, even when it's risky. Be willing to get fired rather than compromise what you know is right. That principle, established during 3 months of tension on a television western in 1958, would define everything Clint did afterward. Every film he directed, every character he played, every creative decision he made. All because a CBS producer told him to smile more, and Clint said no. The ramrod who was too quiet became one of the most iconic cowboys in television history. The actor who was threatened with firing became one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. The performance that was called too boring became the template for a new kind of Western hero. And Charles Marquis Warren, to his eternal credit, admitted he was wrong. Not quietly, not privately, but publicly, proudly, and completely. Because sometimes the best thing a producer can do is get out of an actor's way and let them prove you wrong.